do two things. I turned on the guest account, I'm turning off the login. So let's go look at the, now this of course what will be different about my login experience now. Yeah, now here's the key. Because I've activated the guest account without a password, by the way, I have this option right here to log in. So essentially what you're allowing your web users to do is log in as a guest, in addition to being able to log in, of course. But since the authentication dialog, which is which in the case of instant web publishing is just like HTML or Java window that shows in the page, you'll get the ability to log in here. If your application only has the guest account activated with no password and no other passwords, and then no file option login preferences, it'll just pass right through to the database. So there are cases, of course, where maybe it's an intranet solution. You want to provide everybody who needs access to the FileMaker database access without logging in for whatever reasons. I mean, there are some scenarios where that makes sense. Just have only the guest account active and don't give it a password and allow that pass through. But in every other scenario, make sure that people are required to enter in a password. Something I'll share with you here that I just happen to be seeing on screen, it gives me an opportunity to mention this because it shocks me how often this happens. Note, what's this account name? It just says this word Prizo, right? What's going on there? Anybody want to speculate why that's in the account name?
That's the username of the workstation.
It's the name, right? It's the name of my computer. So the reason I mention this is because this is kind of a gotcha for folks. If you go under your, if you want to manage this, if you go under Edit into Windows, by the way, but under your FileMaker Advanced dialog, you'll see that there's this option called Username. And I just happen to have called this is my presentation or Prizo account on my computer, so it just grabbed that name. The thing is, this just happened to me yesterday, frankly. I don't know if you guys share the same experience, but the most common security-related issue that I hear from my clients is, oh, that password you gave is not working. And then the very first thing I'll ask is, what's the username that you're typing in? Oh, I didn't have to type one in. It was already in there for me. I just put the password in. No. So, IT has gone and installed all these copies of FileMaker, and it just says their machine name. And so people naturally see it. They don't think I have to enter in my username because it's already there. Well, in fact, they're saying, if I put in Prizo in a password, it's not going to let me in because it's not an account. John?
So they do those images, like large biotech,
That's a
whatever.
great example.
Everybody has their name in that box. I like to tell them to make the image the username in the preferences.
It'll save us all the hassle.
Just call it enter account name.
Yeah, actually, I did a little trick where I installed a copy of FileMaker Advanced on my client's machine, and I wanted them to make sure that, hey, if I forget to remove this, it's not yours. So I put the account name in there. If I forget to remove this, this is not yours. And that way anybody who opens it up sees that first. Yeah, comment?
I'm not sure why. I thought I picked up the user account that was logged into the system.
Oh, you mean...
the login to the database.
You mean my OS level account?
Yeah.
Well, you're actually right. That assumption is actually right, but it doesn't necessarily, that's not a constant. And the reason I say that is because my user account is Prizo.
Oh,
so
okay.
if I don't change it, when I install FileMaker, FileMaker grabs that account name.
Right,
puts
and
it in
actually
there.
I think it wasn't on 8.5 or, I think 8.5. It would pick up the name of the account that actually installed FileMaker on the system, doesn't it?
That sounds vaguely familiar, actually.
Well, that's because when you install it, that name kind of gets burned in.
It gets burned in,
and
so
until you change it,
yep.
that's what's in there.
Yeah,
And really, it
I
has to
remember
have
getting sort of
something.
burned by that by the IT department using their account to log in and install it.
Right.
And people kept not being able to log into the system.
Right, and this is a very common occurrence. But you can make this thing work for you. So if you run into this situation that we're talking about, if you have access to people's machines, or if IT are friendly folks that you get along with, if either of those situations are true, just suggest to them, go into this user's machine. And again, I'm talking about personal workstations, not public workstations. This particular thing wouldn't work too well if a lot of people share a computer. But why not just go in and put their account name in there? you're not like revealing any security issues without a password. It's not going to allow them to log into the system anyways. But if Bill Smith uses this machine primarily, no one else uses it, and his account name happens to be B Smith, you just go in here and go B Smith.
So, Chris,
Yeah.
if you put B Smith in there, or can they change it to some other account name and log in?
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
And that's actually what the clients, whenever I get these calls, like, oh, I'm trying my password, it's not working, they're not, clearing out the computer name and putting their actual account name.
So
You
that's-
absolutely can.
That's not hard-coded, you're saying?
Absolutely not.
Whereas the other one right above, the Prezo option, is hard-coded?
Well, it can be removed as well.
Okay.
In both of these cases, it's just sort of, it's supposed to be some sort of helper thing to put that in there first. If you make it work for you, it's nice, but if otherwise, people have to keep clearing it out.
Got it.
Can
Yeah.
you leave it blank as other and make that work?
Sure, yeah, that's a good idea. Why not?
The downside though is like with FileMaker server, if you want to see who's connected.
This is where I'm going with it. Yeah, that's the important part. Now, identifying these computers is pretty important. I'm sorry, you had another comment before I begin.
There was a question.
Sure.
So this is, you're in Prezo.
Right.
But if somebody else logs into this computer, and it might be Jones,
They're going to see Prezo.
they'll still say Prezo?
Yeah, and that's an important understanding point here, because this is where you can make this work. As we know, there's all these get functions within FileMaker that are extremely useful when identifying who people are. Personally, I care a lot about the security of my clients' data, but the real reason I want them to use accounts is so I know who everybody is, and I can make personalized experiences for people and take them to certain areas of the solution right away when they log in, or create found sets for them, or prohibit them from going to certain areas. And by identifying a couple of different things from these people, who the account is, that's a certain get function, get account name. And then there's get username. Okay, you ever notice that there's those two, and you think, well, isn't that the same thing? The username, this is the username that they're talking about. And if it happens to be the same, this is, by the way, a way that we can identify the computer that a person is on. Now, when would that be useful? For example, I was just doing a project for a client that's in a warehouse. They've got all these people unpacking boxes and scanning stuff and putting information in. And from a QA standpoint, they want to have reports afterwards that say how many, did this person unpack, and what was their level of, their QA score, or whatever it is for the work that they did. Well, the problem in that case is that some of these users could move around to different stations, and they wanted, in this particular case with the client, they wanted to be able to identify the work that a person did at a station. So they wanted to differentiate Bill Jones in the shipping station versus Bill Jones in the audit station, that type of thing. And through a combination of get account names and get usernames upon login, we can differentiate those people from each other. So if you left it blank, just like you said, then we're missing out on one of those opportunities to not be able to extract this information.
You have to get MAC addresses as well.
Yeah, you can use MAC addresses as well, and that'll help you identify your computer. No question about that. But then, there's other areas where you might, use this in communicating with the person as well. So, there's different reasons to do this. Now, for me, on my own development machine, I did the simple trick of putting in admin in there, because a lot of the files I'm working on for the first time, admin is my login, and quite frankly, admin is probably my account name for most of the solutions, just with some password on it. So at least it saves me a little type. So now, if I were to log in, it says admin for me. In this case, I don't have a password, it's the admin account. So, just something on your own development machine, that might help. But I like the idea of identifying who somebody is. I also like the idea as a developer of identifying what machine they're on. You can also, in your get functions, pull up a couple of those babies. You can identify, so we got get account name, that's the name, for their account and password combination. There's get username. Let's go just down there. There's only 3 of them that I really want to show you.
But there's no get password.
And get password? Yeah. That could be a question someday.